What happened in the Swedish city of Vallentuna in the year 1974 is still a mystery. One thing is for sure, it attracted the attention of the local inhabitants, mass media, and also some military. What is more interesting, it also involves an alien abduction. Maybe. Nobody knows exactly how many UAPs were observed on that day, but all in all, 76 reports were collected from around 30 people. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are following me, you know that I had some trouble with the mic. Still have that, but today it seems to work, so here I am recording another episode. And I seem to slay also this red lipstick. I guess I'm gonna stick to that and become the Taylor Swift of YouTube and mysteries and crime. Anyways, we have a lot of things to cover in today's episode, so I'm gonna be short. Subscribe, hit the notification button, comment, you know the drill. Today we are moving to a place called Vallentuna. Vallentuna is the seat of Vallentuna municipality in Stockholm County, Sweden. Vallentuna's cultural landscape is well preserved and human habitation in the area has been traced back as far as the Stone Age. So, as far as we can understand, a neat and nice area. It was the evening of March 24th, year 1974. It was a peaceful evening until a lot of local citizens started to report some disturbances on their TV and radio sets. Among them was one of the local citizens, Hillevi Anderson. Just 3 days ago, she was celebrating her 36th birthday. So on that Sunday evening, she was waiting for her guests that she had invited a little bit earlier. However, a little bit later, she received a phone call saying that the guests will not arrive since I guess they had some other plans or something happened to them, so they had to postpone. So on that evening at around 7:30 p.m., she decides to just randomly call her parents. Her parents lived a couple of miles to north, and this place is a little bit isolated and remote. However, something strange happened. She couldn't get through on the phone to her parents. And after a while, she got a little bit worried. Why is this happening? Are they okay? So she decided that probably it's a good idea just to take this ride to their house and check if they are okay. And so Hillevi puts her 3 kids in the car and starts her ride to her parents' house. The ride in total took her around like 15 minutes. But on her way, she kind of noticed that there's like a light following the car. And it happens for quite a while until a moment when this light that has like a circular shape reduces the shape until like a size of an orange and then suddenly disappears in the sky. Hillevi didn't pay a lot of attention to this light. She felt like it is weird, but wasn't like caring about it a lot. Maybe it was like a shooting star, maybe a helicopter or a plane. Those were the options in her mind. Little did she know that actually this was the beginning of one freaky night for her and her family. When she reached the parents' house, she was greeted by her father, who looked quite frustrated because his new purchased TV set didn't work properly, like it had a lot of disturbances. And for your information, during the 70s, like in Sweden, they had like a couple of channels, and around 8 p.m. when Hillevi arrived in the house, that was the time when usually all the family had their dinner and were gathering around the TV to watch something like news or some TV shows. Now, this made Hillevi a little bit suspicious, and she said like, yeah, in addition to this, seems like your phone is also not working because I was trying to reach you like an hour ago and it didn't went through. And also on that moment, she kind of recalled the weird light that she was encountering while she was driving to the parents' house. And she decided, well, I might as well just tell about that to my parents. Soon after she told her father about the light, something strange happened. So they were standing there by the doorstep and suddenly they were disturbed by a bright light across the road. So across the road there was an old quarry, and there they saw a huge light bulb hovering over the treetops. And besides this huge light bulb, there was like a smaller light circle, and it was making like some weird zigzag moves all around. All of the family suddenly gathered, like there was Hillevi's mom, father, and also remember she took with her the 3 daughters. all of them simply froze. They were scared, and the kids started to cry and shout, and one of Hillevi's daughters even like fell on the ground screaming in shock and refused to just stand up. And again, after a while, this big light circle or light bulb reduced in the size to the size of like an orange and suddenly like dashed away somewhere up in the sky. All of them were standing there and they were very shocked from this experience. After a while, they gathered themselves and started to think that, well, maybe it would be a good idea to visit Hillevi's brother Hilding, and he was also not living so far from the parents' house. It took them about 5 minutes of a drive to Hillevi's brother's house, but to their surprise, on the moment when they were just pulling by the house, Hillevi's brother's wife suddenly dashed out of the house, and her first question was about the light that was following the car. And this, my friends, is quite weird, because during those 5 minutes while they were driving to Hillevi's brother's house, she didn't spot any like lights following her like it was before when she was driving to the parents' house. So this makes it like kind of creepy. But the thing about Hillevi is that she's a very curious cat. I assume like you and I, right? She was eager to go back and see this light again. Maybe it will appear anywhere on the road where they were driving before. So she decided that she should do it. She should go back and probably try to catch this light again and just like try to understand what it is. Like, let's take a second to appreciate Hillevi and her like curiosity. Probably I would just like go to bed and pray for the next day to come when the sky is clear and there is no chance of seeing something that would follow me like a light bulb. I don't know, but she decided I should do it. That was her decision, and she was like persistent. I'm gonna go back and check what that light was, if it's still there somewhere in the area. The only thing that I didn't really like about her decision is that she, of course, took her car, and she also took her 3 children with her. Like, probably I would have left them in the brother's house. Like, I wouldn't take the risk, because you still don't know what this light is. I guess curiosity runs in their blood, since brother Hilding also decided to join his sister. So he took his own car and was like escorting his sister behind her, like driving behind her. And after a while, indeed, something started to happen. Hillevi was riding in the front, Hilding was in the back, and suddenly a light bulb again appeared. So it reached first Hilding's car, was hovering over Hilding's car, then went forward, reached Hillevi's car, and then flew a little bit further, around 400 meters in front of Hillevi's car. It stopped and was hovering around 10 meters above the ground. And also there was, as before, this little light bulb or light circle, and it again was moving around incoherently. But apparently Hillevi like continued to move with her car, and this object went back and stopped on top of Hillevi's car. So all the light was on her car. And while this object was on her car, it also followed wherever she was moving. And this was the moment when Hillevi decided that, well, probably I should pull over, come out and like check what's there above me. I mean, can we appreciate again her curiosity? I would be my pants in that moment. But again, remember, in the car, there are also her kids. So I'm a little bit judgy about that one. Hillevi pulled over and she stepped out of the car, and all of the 3 daughters suddenly kind of decided to follow her. And she said, just go back, don't follow me, sit in the car. So these light bulbs, the largest and the smallest one, suddenly like started to move around and went a little bit further and started to hover over a barn that was not so far from the place where Hillevi pulled over. And after a while, just like it happened before, suddenly it just reduced in the size and just zipped somewhere up there in the sky and disappeared. On the next day, Hillevi decided that probably it would be wise to call the police and tell about the experience that her family had on the previous night. So she calls the police, and well, they were not interested in this story. And let's be honest, probably they thought it's just like some kind of crazy invention of a crazy lady. But Hillevi did not give up. What she did was she reached out to Swedish National Defense Research Institute, and those guys, they listened to her story, were not judging. They didn't say that she's a crazy lady. In fact, they wrote down all of her testimony and gave it further to a person whose title is UFO administrator, and his name was Tage Eriksson. Eriksson had a solid reputation of dealing with these UFO cases. In fact, he had been in this UFO administrator position since the year 1965. Remember, this event took place in the year 1974, so he had been around these UFO stories for quite a while. And also, he had a reputation of a big UFO skeptic, and I guess that's a very good position where you should start if you're like constantly hearing stories like this. But then again, not necessarily like a big skeptic is the best thing, because you still have to kind of be open and think outside the box. Not always everything can be explained with, well, I'm just gonna tell you how he explained this particular case. So he said that most probably this was just another case of a weather balloon. Oh my God. Just another weather balloon. Hello? Roswell calling. Time passed and Hillevi was kind of starting to face the fact that nobody cares and nobody believes, until she received a phone call from the police. Remember when she was calling to the police after this event took place with her and her family? The police was like, yeah, we're not interested. Well, now there on the other side was the policeman who received her testimony on that night, and he was apologizing to her. And you know why? Because on that night, in line with Hillevi's report, they received a lot of other reports from the local citizens describing almost the same thing. In fact, during March 23rd and 24th of the year 1974, the police all in all collected around 74 reports from 31 witnesses, and all of them came from the Vallentuna area. And this brings us to another character that's kind of important to the whole story of this Vallentuna case, and his name is Yosta Huger. One night before all of this craziness in Vallentuna happened, Yosta was returning back home from a party that he had with his friends. And while he was walking on the road, suddenly he noticed that there is a light in front of him, and this light was coming closer and closer to him. Yosta became curious, so he started to go towards the light, as crazy as it sounds. And suddenly he was thrown off the feet by some kind of unexplainable power, and he just simply blacked out. After a while, Yosta wakes up in some other place. He has an injury in his head, bruises on his face, and no memory about what happened after he was swept off his feet. He immediately went back home, rang the doorbell, where he was greeted by his wife. Of course, she was waiting for him. On the next day, he called National Defense, who put him in contact with a person whose name is Hardy Bornholm, and he became the main investigator of this Vallentuna case all in all. In the spring of the same year, Yosta went to Chief Physician Ture Arvidsson at Danderyd Hospital, and there he went through 2 hypnotic sessions. And hypnosis, that's another topic. Not everyone believes that this actually works. Some do believe. I'm not gonna tell you my opinion, but I'm just gonna give you the facts that he went through 2 sessions and some interesting things came out of it. Let's get to those things that Yosta described in these sessions. So he said that he was taken aboard to some kind of craft or a vehicle where he was examined by semi-transparent humanoids. In the second session though, and this will sound a little bit weird, he described these humanoids as Native Americans, or I guess they were resembling Native Americans, how they look or so, I don't know. Then he said that they were wearing something that resembled hoodies. They didn't have ears, they didn't have noses. And he also said that they gave him some kind of mission that he had to complete on the earth. Later on, when they were asked to give some specifics about this mission, he was very vague and didn't tell anything, to be honest. However, he did remember that he was about to complete this mission in the year 2000. Fast forward, I couldn't find any sources saying that he did something that was like very important in the year 2000. Nevertheless, these are the facts, and you have to know this information in regards to this story. In these sessions, he continued to tell a lot of crazy stuff, and they would be like very good sci-fi movie like plot. One of these things was, for example, that these humanoids put something on his forehead that caused him like a burning pain. Anyways, you know how I like to look into the personalities who are allegedly seeing those aliens or UAPs or UFOs. So let's dive a little bit into the life of Yosta. You see, Yosta had an accident when he was a child where he fell from a tree and lost his eye. He said that after this, he started to have a higher sensibility for precognition and other extrasensory perceptions. Before I continue about Yosta, there's another thing. Coincidence or not, you judge. So Hillevi, the lady whose story I was telling you a little bit earlier, she also, as it appears, had a near-death experience when she was a child. And remember when they were at the parents' house and they saw the UFO hovering over the old quarry on top of the treetops? Yeah. Her near-death experience actually happened there. The quarry was used as a place for swimming during the summer. The 4-year-old Hillevi fell into the water and lost consciousness. She basically drowned. After being saved by her father, she remembered how she was surrounded by beautiful lights. Afterwards, she started to believe there might be a connection between the events. But now let's return back to Yosta. As I said, we have to understand what kind of person he is. Actually, people describe him as someone who is really down to earth, not very eccentric, and during his life he was not very fond of telling the story of what happened to him on that evening. In fact, he actually didn't really like to tell the story to anyone. In fact, and this is interesting, Yosta never said that all of this event was an alien abduction, meaning he never, in his own words, he never said like I was abducted by the aliens. All that he said was that he didn't remember what happened to him on that night. And just a side note, that's like from my perspective, remember he was coming home from a party with his friends. Maybe he just got too drunk, and this is why he passed out somewhere outside the city. I don't know, but could be an option. But then again, in the police reports, there were many people saying that they also saw this light in the area where Yosta allegedly saw it. So there was a woman who was like passing by with a bicycle in that area. She didn't saw Yosta, but she saw the light somewhere there. And also there were two other guys separately from each other. They also said that they saw some kind of light in that area. So maybe we can believe Yosta that he saw light. I don't know. In regards to Hillevi, she was also offered a hypnotic session, kind of the same way as Yosta, but she refused. And she said she's not gonna do it because she remembers everything from that night. And I think she's a smart girl. Probably I would also not involve in any hypnosis sessions. I'm so scared that after these sessions, they will do something to me. Like, for example, that afterwards they say a word and I start to act like a chicken and run around, you know, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just watching too many movies. However, Hillevi and the other people who allegedly saw something on that night started to have some kind of health issues. For example, a lot of them were reporting that they were vomiting a lot, they had a lot of migraines, and doctors noticed that they have increased level of white blood cells. Maybe this was caused by the stress. It could be, or maybe it was radioactivity, but I didn't find any like documents saying that they checked the people for radioactivity, but I don't think that was the case. Maybe in general it was stress. I would like to believe in that. So if we continue about Hillevi and her experience, what happened to her on the next day? So we know that she started to make those calls, but she also went together with her husband to the old quarry just to see if there is something left after this object hovered there the previous night. And allegedly they saw some marks on the ground, and also the treetops where the light was hovering were kind of cut off. Unfortunately, we do not have any pictures or anything, so we have to either to believe her or not. After a while, when this case became a thing and also media started to cover it, the National Defense Research Institute, the representatives of this institute actually came to Vallentuna, and according to the information, they took some samples of burned grass and soil. So maybe they took it from the old quarry area. So this is a real thing. And people who saw these people working in those areas and taking the samples, they said that everything was really legit. They were even wearing protective coats. So they were taking this case really seriously. The commander-in-chief of that time, Stig Sinnergen, ordered to place people in several positions in the area in the following weeks. So they did this because that would allow them to kind of detect this phenomena in case it returns, and also the positions were like in separate places so that they can get the picture from different angles, and I think it's very smart. All of this was officially declared as a military exercise, and it had a name called Operation S like standing for spying. As far as my research went, this military operation didn't detect anything. So this phenomena didn't return. So there were just like those 2 days when people saw something. A lot of people saw something. And the official Swedish Defense Institute documents conclude and state that there was an actual physical object in the sky of the area in Vallentuna, and nobody can explain it. In addition, this is not so much talked about in relation to this case. There was allegedly another sighting in the area around a couple of months before this event took place. It was a New Year's Eve, and it was in the area that was around like 10 kilometers away from the place where the main Vallentuna sightings happened. And a company of 4 to 5 people were coming back from their New Year's party, heading towards their home. And then suddenly a cigar-shaped object with like a specific line with small windows or something similar appeared. And this object was literally floating over the ground and then like moving towards the forest, where it stopped and hovered for a while. This is actually one of the like shapes, the main shapes of UAPs that are generally known, and they are no exception in Scandinavian cases. Now let's think about it. What could be the explanation of this event? Stars, planets, asteroids, meteors. Well, remember, some of the objects were reported to move as if they had an idea of where they should move. They also followed the car, which meant that they knew what they were doing. So I wouldn't believe that that's a thing. Airplanes, helicopters, well, the closest airport is around 30 kilometers from Vallentuna area, and none of the flights actually go like cross the sky territory over Vallentuna area. So probably this would not be the case. Let's think about how trustworthy is all of this case. Can we believe to the things that were reported? Well, all in all, the main evidence, I guess, was the testimonies of the people. So people can invent anything. To consider this case believable for real, I think we should have more of material evidence. I don't know, like I couldn't find any source where there were like pictures or some data from the soil that they took. Even though like if there was something unusual in those soil samples that they took there, they didn't say that there was something unusual, or maybe they're keeping it a secret. I don't know. But all in all, what we have is just those testimonies. And then, remember, hypnosis. I wouldn't be like so much relying on hypnosis. if you know what I mean. It can be something additional to the case, but not like one of the main things that would make us think that this case is believable and this was a real UFO. What is more, in many sources I came across this kind of idea that the investigation was conducted in a very like pro-alien, pro-UFO way, like as if they were very eager to prove that this was a UFO rather than just looking at things in a sober way, analyzing them and making some logic conclusions. Well, I don't know about that, but I also have a question about some other research that could be done. For example, on Yosta. Remember, he woke up, he had some head injury, he had some bruises on his face. Did they analyze those bruises? Maybe there was like something in the bruises that would prove that probably he was abducted by an alien. Or maybe he was, as I said, simply just drunk and fell on a rock and this is how he got the injury. I don't know. And also, kind of funny thing that I don't think plays very well for this case is that there was a man, like I assume they created this like investigative group with people who looked into the evidence and collected the testimonies. One of these guys, his name was Bjorn Svanstrom, and he was the one who was designated to collect the testimonies from people. So he had all of the documents, all of the reports from the people in the area. And after like many, many years, he suddenly decides to destroy all of these reports. And when asked like, why did you decide to do that, he said that, well, it's like privacy thing and confidentiality thing, because when I was collecting the testimonies from the people, I promised them that all of this will stay like confidential and their names will not come up. First of all, testimony does not have a lot of value if you're doing it in an anonymous way. And secondly, I don't really like the idea of destroying all of these reports. It's like either you're hiding something, either you're just trying to get rid of them because they will show that this case is a hoax. Klas Svan, a man whose name I'm mentioning quite often in relation to UFO cases in Sweden, actually went down to meet Hillevi around 40 years after this event took place, and Hillevi still stuck to her story. She didn't change anything. Many of the people who had these encounters are already deceased, and those who are still alive are still very confused and still questioning what was that thing that they saw up there in the sky on that evening. And here it is, my friends. This is the case of Vallentuna. Let's be honest, this is a very curious case. It involved also military, the defense department. They did some tests. They stayed there for like a week to just like see if this thing returns back, but they didn't get anything. Or there's also this option, they did see something, but they're not sharing it, you know? You never know, because the other evidence, as I said, it's like 50-50. So all in all, it's up to you. Believe it or not. Can it be explained or not? What was it? It's so confusing, I know. But anyways, a favor from you is just write down in comments, what are you thinking about this case? What was that thing that these people see in the sky of Vallentuna on those evenings? Anyways, I'm gonna put a full stop here and finish my today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Put those likes, share this video with anyone who would be interested in seeing this video or any other on my channel. Thank you so much for watching again and see you next time.
Thank you.